Okay. Good morning, everyone. I thank you for your presence, and I want to ask if there are any questions that you may have formulated since yesterday in regards to what we talked about, or any questions that came to you that you would like us to address. If so, then would you please do that now, or comment, either one, or both. No comments, no questions. Okay.
This is Vermel. I have a question.
Yes,
Yesterday,
ma'am.
we were talking, you, towards the end, you said this is us utilizing our sense. Could you expand on
Yes.
that, explain that a little bit more? Because you said we're
Um,
working in it, we
Go
are not
ahead.
working towards it, right?
Yes, I was trying to remember what that was in response to. Um, but when I was talking about living and utilizing the eighth sense, one of the simplest examples of that is when we use it when driving, or when we use it when you say, "I start not to do that." Something told me not to do that. But in a what more in depth sense is when we are able to look at what our eyes see and interpret it with our eye, in regards to what's going on in the Ukraine, as well as what took place at the Academy Awards, what we see in regards to um, Trump and his continuous provocations when it comes to race relations and this country in general. Uh, Understanding what they mean, our eighth sense helps us to see behind what our eyes see. The eighth sense is when we are able to see what's coming before it gets here. And you say, well, how can I see that? Well, when we look at the statements that were made in regards to Judge Brown by Mitch McConnell, that was a signal that what was to come is a vicious attack on African feminine energy in order to quote unquote keep it in its place. Does that help you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, are there any questions in regards to that? Any more or comments?
So my second part is we are operating in the eighth sense. It doesn't mean we are always aware that we are.
Okay, let me change your word there, if I may.
Okay.
If you're operating something that's mechanical,
Okay.
like you are making it happen, and you stop it when you get ready.
Mhm.
We are functioning.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we're not operating the eighth sense. We're not manipulating it. We are functioning or in the eighth sense because we are now aware of it. So our functionality with the eighth sense has increased. It's like someone would tell you, did you smell that? And you had not paid it any attention, then you say, oh, that smells like bread cooking.
Right.
So so now, would you please mute your phones, please? Thank you. Would you mute your phones, please? Check your phones to make sure they're muted. Thank you. So right now, what we are becoming aware of is to be on the always be aware rather of what you smell, or always be aware of what's in front of you. What we call our gut feeling is saying to us. That makes sense.
It does. That helps.
That's the function. That's how we function. It's not us functioning in it as much as it is our function. That's who we are. So you cannot help but function in regards to who you are or who you think you are. And there is a difference. Okay?
Yep.
Anyone else? Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, it's Ron. I have a question. The last few weeks, we have talked a lot about memory, and that part is becoming clearer to me, the importance of it. But what is the difference between searching out your memory and looking at your past? Those I would think are two different things, because we've talked about living in the present before. Explain the differences between those two, though.
Okay. When we stand within the parameter of time, or when we are within the bracket of time, we see things in past, present, and future. That's the time element that's in place for the purpose of the animalistic attitudes to be transformed into to understanding who we were created to be. However, when we talk about beginning, we talk about memory, we are talking about now. And the now of which I speak is this. When we think about, when we remember that all life came from the womb of an African female, that's beginning. And right now, we see where that has brought us. We see the total disrespect for that feminine energy, especially the feminine energy of the African female. We also know where we want to be, and that is respecting that feminine energy so it can function as it was created to function. That's beginning, that's now, that's what we would call future. However, all of that is in the now, and let me explain that, please. The beginning of that, of understanding that life coming from the feminine, the female of Africa rather. And then now we see the disrespect of that same female energy with Judge Brown and many other African females. At the same time, we see the need for balance to be brought to the earth so that respect can be placed where it was designed to be. And we understand now that if that, when that happens with the African female, then everything falls into place in terms of balance. Does that help you, sir?
Okay. So the relationship then between memory, how does memory take you to beginning?
Memory takes us. Okay.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When Jesus says to Nicodemus, you must return to the beginning, what Jesus is saying to Nicodemus, he's not talking about returning to, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, and the darkness covers the deep. That's not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is the beginning of, go back to the beginning where mankind began to understand who it is. Go back to the day when you exited the womb. And I'm not talking about your physical mother's womb, but what the womb that every human exited from. Go back to that point. And when you go back to that point and you understand the origin of your existence, then you begin to respect what's happening in your life now in a different way. When Jesus taught, Jesus was a seed impregnating a mind. He impregnated Nicodemus' mind. And when Nicodemus responded because of that impregnation, he was saying, how can I go back to my mother's womb? And Jesus was talking about going back to the beginning of humanity in this earth. And when Nicodemus, when he realized Nicodemus was not catching it, what did he say? He says something like, "No one, you must be returned to the beginning spiritually." And the spirit, no one knows where the spirit comes from, neither do they know where it goes. So Jesus is saying to Nicodemus, you must return spiritually. How do we return spiritually? By reminiscing, by remembering, by understanding where we came, where we originated as humanity or as mankind. And then we will begin to see the expectations that our Creator has for us. And when we see those expectations, all of that's happening right now. As I'm speaking to you, the idea of the womb is not yesterday, it's right now. The idea of understanding the essence and the purpose of coming out of that womb, the expectations of our creation is now. And desiring balance, desiring to usher in the respect for that African female womb is also now. And the now of it speaks to the idea of understanding that the first respect of that womb has to come from the African male. And the reason it does is because the two became one. And in that, all humanity began to rise from that African origin. And the African male bought into the disrespect. And by doing so, it was disrespecting itself and did not realize it. So when that respect is reinstated for that African energy of femininity, then it becomes whole again. And the wholeness of it is what birth is needed for those who have been the major source of this disrespect will begin to pick it up in the macro, and attitudes towards that will begin to change. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any questions or comments about that?
Yeah, and that womb you speak of, that's the place where our true creations, when we create things, that's the place we need to be spiritually, and our energy needs to come from that place when we really create. When we look at ourselves as creating, if we create with that in mind, we also bring balance that way.
Yes, because what we are doing, we are creating an environment for the feminine energy to flourish, and that environment is created when we begin to be more expressive of our respect, not only in a spiritual sense, but in our everyday actions as well. Because in order for us to be human, we have to merge, for lack of a better word, the spiritual aspects of our creation with the physical aspects of our being. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions?
So on yesterday, we talked about the Academy Awards and trying to reinstate what we thought was important, which was what's said in the monologue, and we went into that portion of it. And when you stop and look at what was said and how we approached that, it was an assertiveness that this is what we think belongs, and we went and did it. It was no hesitation. There was no reluctance or feeling like, can I do this or should I do this? We saw it and saw the importance of it, and we did it.
But we didn't, excuse me 1 second, Ron. Let me say the word. We didn't think it. We knew it.
Okay.
We knew it.
Okay. That's
Okay.
what I'm getting. Should we have that knowing with every aspect of our being, with everything that we see, everything from the attitudes of man, the violence that we see, because in a lot of ways we are reactive and reluctant, hesitant rather, maybe not reluctant. That's not the right word. And I'm trying to see how we get that assertiveness to put ourselves out there, to feel everything that needs to be felt, and to do that. I'm probably
I
not
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, you clear. You clear.
Okay. And so that's the importance to me of seeing this womb and being one with it, and because there's so much stuff that's going on. The world is full of confusion and even in our neighborhoods, and you cut the TV on and this happens now, and I'm not. You get bombarded when you watch all of that stuff, but in recognizing who we are and finding that place that you and us just described, that womb, it seems like there's endless power there, there's endless energy there, and how do we patch into it with that same kind of feeling of certainty? Is what I'm saying.
Well, first of all, it takes cultivation, right? Without cultivation, there is no belief. And without belief, there is no knowing. Every time we say that we are going to get this understanding, or we are going to function with the 8%, for lack of a better phrase, well, every time we say we're going to, we're getting there. This is not cultivating it as much as we should. It is a backdoor of a way of uprooting of what we have established, not knowing it, but because of the conditioning that we've gone through, and our mindset, or in this European mindset that we have been reared in. When we look at it from the platform of desire, then that cultivation takes on a new look. That cultivation begins to show us that you don't parse out the individual things that are happening, because all of it comes from the same energy. That cultivation shows us that the repurposing of the energy that is adverse to our creation will change everything, as opposed to changing one thing at a time. Also, this cultivation tells us that you don't have to continuously cultivate it. Once you cultivate it, just like beginning is now, and just like the understanding of beginning is now, because you're shown what it is, that cultivation shows us you're it. Once you peel off, once you get your degree, pass the board and become an MD, you have not really practiced as an MD until you pass the board. That's when you're considered an MD. When we are cultivating in the spiritual sense, we have become, makes us aware of who we are, And once we become aware of who we are, we've already passed the voice. When we become aware of who we are, it's time for us to function from the basis of who we are. And the basis of who we are says that we function as humans. And as humans, how do we function? We function from the six senses and the seventh sense. All of these senses are in the physical. And we also function in regards to the eighth sense, which is the spiritual. And functioning from these aspects of the senses is what makes us human, as opposed to having an animalistic attitude. So rather than saying, I'm going to get this, we are saying this is who we are. Rather than saying, I'm going to function in the eighth sense. No, that's what I'm doing now. You've been doing it, but you didn't realize it. So why would you back off it now and say, I'm going to, when you've already been doing it in regards to, the automobile, or regards to, I should have followed my gut feeling, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that address what you were raising?
Oh, kind of. And I'll come back to it. Let me think about it.
No,
again.
keep talking. I would, if you would keep pursuing it, because it is encouraging that we understand that we are who we are, and because we are who we are, we don't have to become that anymore. We are that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And attributes, we can't be that without having all the attributes. So if we say we're Elohim, we have the attributes. So our mind got to catch up with our soul, or our mind has to submit to our soul, so that our thoughts would be based upon who we are and not who we thought we were. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah. Let me think about it, man. See if somebody else has a question,
Okay.
Pastor. I'll come back.
Okay. Anyone else?
Good morning. I do, Pastor. Good morning. This is Teresa. For those who weren't on the call or got the message as far as what happened and what took place at the office, can you expand on that, please?
What happened at the awards ceremony is when Will slapped Chris Rock. It's bigger than that. This is not about Will Smith. It's not about Chris Rock. It is a message. The idea of him slapping Chris Rock speaks to the concept of creating a distraction, so we will not see the reality of what took place at the Oscars. What am I saying? What took place at the Oscars, the most important thing that took place at the Oscars was Chris Rock's monologue about the racism in Hollywood, which is really the racism in the world. And the way he addressed it, all of that was lost because of a slap. So this is not about an individual called Will or an individual called Chris. It is about someone who created a distraction so that we missed the message that was being sent through the energy of Chris. Does that help you, Teresa?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments?
So this is Barbara. So part of staying in the now, in a sense, because that's what the eighth sense is. It's not saying I'm going to function or I will be able or one day I will be able. It's understanding and accepting that knowing who you are, part of knowing who you are is that you function with the eighth sense. And so it's understanding at all times that while I may see something physical with my eyes, there is something that's behind what I see physically with my eyes that I see with my eye. And it's always being in that state of understanding that that there is something underneath or behind what the physical shows. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely what we're talking about. You cannot have it any other way if we are going to not only be aware of who we are, but function that way. And the reason I use the word function is because I was reading the Bible, which is literally translated some of the words in the Old Testament, and it was the tree of functionality and the tree of dysfunctionality. And those words resonated deeply with me because when we are doing things that are adverse to what we were created to do or to be, then we are dysfunctional. We are only functional when we are thinking, processing, acting, hearing as humans. When all of the senses are engaged at one time, that's when we're functioning as Elohim, or that's the way Elohim functions, rather. Elohim functions with all the senses at one time. All of them are functioning at one time, at the same time. So you don't miss it. When you see it, you may not be able to explain it at that moment, but in the depth of your soul, you know that it's moving what you're seeing with your eyes. Does that make sense? In regards to what you were saying, Barbara?
Yes.
Anyone else or any questions?
Yes.
Hey, Rep, this is Charles. What's going on with these two kids at this school, 12 years old, shooting one another?
Yes.
It's a message. If those things were not happening the way they are, they would not get our attention. If that was a 30-year-old shooting a 30-year-old, okay, that happens. But a 12-year-old shooting a 12-year-old at school, that gets our attention. And that impresses upon us the extreme necessity of us functioning the way we were created to function. That is imperative that we cease talking about what we're going to be, what we're going to do, how we're going to embrace something, and begin to realize that that's already done. And the more we embrace the reality of it already being done, the more energy that we are able to repurpose so that these things can not necessarily be halted, but be minimized to the greatest degree that the universe can minimize them. Does that make sense? So,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else or any questions about that? And again, we can't parse things out individually, but these things happen individually because they keep our attention, keep our focus. The thing about CRT keeps our focus on the necessity of the history of humanity. This thing about disregarding or eliminating the history of the origin of mankind keeps our focus on governmental issues that needs to be balanced. The idea of understanding that democracy cannot come into play in this nation until some major changes are made. We are not a representative democracy. So when we see things like passing laws to keep people from voting or to suppress the vote, this gets our attention, and it helps us to see the energies in every area that needs to be repurposed. And And when I say things need to change, and because they're not a functional I'm not a representative democracy, is because of the way that the House of Representatives was set up in the beginning. They counted us as 3/5 of a man, and in compromise, 2 senators to each state, regardless of the number of people in those states, which means that they have, in a representative democracy, you would not have an electoral college. In a representative democracy, you would not have 2 senators in North Dakota and 2 senators in California. A representative democracy will have people in those places who represent them predicated upon the number that are in that particular area as it works with the House of Representatives. Does that make sense? Hello? Questions, comments? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm processing,
Okay.
and I agree with you.
Okay. Thank you. Was someone about to say something? I heard you, Barbara, and you said you're processing, but someone else I thought was saying something also.
I just said, this is Kathy. Good morning, that it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So again, and let me say this to you also. Paul mentioned the 2 kids who are in trouble because one shot the other. That deeply impacts all of us, of course. But the depth of the impact of different things that happen does not necessarily impact all of us the same way. What I mean by that is this: the impact of the questioning of Judge Brown may impact you deeper than it did me. However, the impact of CRT may have impacted me deeper than it did you. So what I'm saying is this, that these things are done to grab our attention. And as we function as a unit, we are able to bring all of these energies to the same place. And when we examine them, we see that it's not a slap at the awards place. It's not the kids shooting each other. It's not the CRT. It's the same energy that creates distraction, that pulls us away from the desire to know who we are, and it keeps us in religious bondage, always praying for something to a God that is far into the scriptures. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions, comments? Yes, mighty quiet. You have any questions or comments or statements that you have prepped for?
No, I was sitting here thinking you kind of put it more eloquently than I did as far as the when we talked about accepting our status of who we are, and where the functioning is a part of accepting who we are, and when we don't accept that, you mentioned the dysfunction, and that's what I was sort of referencing, when we denying who we are, the very nature of who we are, how we begin to make these errors in life and judgments and things, and that speaks to the dysfunction of it, and really that's just a perfect explanation of why memory is so important, is because when we are dysfunctional and we are denying who we are, that recollection, that recall is the thing that kind of snaps us back and says, wait a minute, I don't feel like myself. And that recall is the thing that kind of snaps us back into to a functional state of who we are and understanding that. And it all kind of, like I said, it all ties together, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that and we have to accept it in order for us to be functional with it. And so that's what I was thinking when you were saying that.
Okay, that makes all this that's clear. I hope it's as clear to everyone as it is to me, as it was to me. So the bottom line I believe that we are driving for is this. This is not a class where we learn in the classical sense of learning. This is an opportunity to uncover what's been covered up. This is a period of resurrection. The thing that we have been longing for is the resurrection of truth. When we talk about the resurrection of Jesus, it's impossible to talk about a man, Jesus, being resurrected without understanding that the resurrection of truth is necessary in order for the deliverance to take place that Jesus' name represents, that his character represents. So rather than holding on to the concept of Western learning, or this is more of the defining of who we are. Think about it this way, if you will. Hold 1 second, please. The defining of who we are is not a learning experience. Defining of who we are is a uncovering. It is an awareness, and that's how the concept of teaching was established in the East. The African concept of teaching is not learning so much of the abstract as much as it is learning who we are. And when we are able to articulate, not necessarily by word, but by action and by expression as to who we are, that is when we are really, really teaching, because we are uncovering. When the African learned about the universe itself, the African was uncovering not only its origin, but it was plotting, it was recognizing rather, all of those things that are in this universe that is created that has a balance with humanity. And when that is recognized, then we uncover something else about who we are. We were created to be in harmony with this celestial ball called Earth. And that is an uncovering of who we are. If it was a learning, that would mean that we never knew it. But we've always known it, but it has been hidden beneath all of the untruth, or beneath all of the misconceptions and the desires to manipulate. Does that make sense? Can you see what I'm saying?
Yes, makes sense.
Any questions about this? I don't know whether I'm so clear until you don't have questions, or you're getting it, or whether or not you're simply pondering what's being said and don't at this moment have a question because it has not been formed yet. Am I right?
So what I hear is that we the beings that we were created to be, we've always been, but there's been so much that has happened, whether it's what we learn or what we experience under white rule or whatever. all of the things that have been oppressive to us, that have been challenges for us as a people, that did not change the beginning of who we were created what we were created to function as. But what I hear you saying is that when we strip away and uncover all of these things and put back in its right perspective, reminding ourselves, remembering, in a sense, who we are originally, that all of this that's what the resurrection is, the recovery of the truth of what has been veiled or hidden, either by ourselves or either through what we believe that others taught us. So it does not change the fact that who we were originally created to be, but that essence has been covered up, and so everything that you're talking about has simply been stripping away everything, all of those facades, all of those walls, all of those everything that has kept us from genuinely seeing who we are.
Right. Any comments or questions about what Barbara just said?
Good morning. Go ahead, Reb, or whoever was before.
No, I was just going to say, and I hope that we grasp and hold on to this difference between awareness and learning, okay? Becoming aware rather and learning. Okay.
One of the things I wanted to say, and I hope it supports what Ms. Barbara said, in trying to find out who we are, trying to find out how I am. Learn how to have fun in life without money. Go shopping. Leave your credit cards. Leave your debit cards. Keep about $4 or $5 on you. Just learn how to shop. Look at things and don't have to buy anything. Because we have been programmed. I'm not going to say we have been programmed. I have been programmed to put money ahead of the task, put money ahead of the assignment, put money ahead of friendship. And that's not who I am. Anytime you put money ahead of anything, you're going to be messed up in the head. So one of the things I'm learning how to do, and I've been doing it for quite some time, I'll go out to eat by myself and I'll drink water. I'm not a water drinker, I'm a soda drinker. I'll go to the mall. I'll go to downtown Charleston, downtown Columbia. Just keep $2 or $3 on me, and I don't have to purchase anything just to deprogram myself, learning how to have fun in life without spending money. Read a book. And I ask all of you all to try it. Go ahead, Reb, my bad.
What you're talking about, go ahead. Who was that, Barbara? Was that someone? Hello? Was someone else about to say something? Okay. What you're talking about is deprogramming yourself from being materialistic. That's what you're talking about. That is different because we can deprogram ourselves from being materialistic and still not be aware of the essence of who we were created to be. Deprogramming ourselves from being materialistic does not translate into functioning as the entity that we were created to be. It does not change a person from being non-empathetic to being empathetic. It does not change someone from being a racist. It doesn't change those things. simply because you're deprogrammed from being materialistic. However, the more we become, the more we embrace rather, the awareness of our essence, the less we become materialistic anyway, because we begin to understand that the material world cannot function without us. The material world cannot live without us, and neither can we live without it. And when I say material, maybe I should change that word to natural. The natural world cannot live without us, and we can't without it, because the carbon dioxide that we exhale, plants depend on that to live, and the oxygen that the plants give after processing carbon dioxide is what we depend on to live. So we are dependent upon each other, and that is seen more clearly when we begin to embrace or become aware of this, of how we were fearfully and wonderfully made to be one with this natural world, and as well as one with the spiritual world. Now, all of these things that we are talking about, when we talk about shopping, are those distractions that are made by man that actually satisfies the selfishness that's within us, as opposed to opening us to understand that these things don't make us who we are. And without us, they would not exist anyway. And I hope that makes sense. George, does it make sense? And to the rest of you, does it make sense to you as well?
There's some aspects of it, Reb. I think everything got a starting point. If we just look at it, I look at African American, we the number one consumers in the United States. However, I do agree with some of the things you said, just not all of it. But I get the gist of it, though.
Okay. You're right. Everything does have a starting point. And if that's your starting point, that's fine. But it may not be my starting point. It may very well be that I could go shopping and have money in my pocket or my debit card and still not buy anything, not because I can't afford it, but because I really am just relaxing by window shopping or just seeing what's out there. So these things are totally different than the awareness of who we are, the type of awareness that I'm trying to get us to develop a vision of. It's like peeling the onion. When you peel the onion, it's still an onion, regardless of how many rings you take off of it. It's still an onion, and to peel it to get to its core is no different than what we're talking about. We're peeling the energy that's adverse to who we are, and as we peel it and get to the core of who we are, that's when we begin to not only see the true nature of humanity, but that's also when we become the human at a place where we have never functioned before as Elohim/human. Does that help you, George, or make sense to you?
Yeah, we cool, Reb. We cool. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No questions
Hey,
coming?
Rep.
Yes, you. Go ahead.
I have one. What's the difference between having life and living?
The difference between that is this. First of all, we don't have life. We are life. If life is something that we have, then that means that we can separate from life and still remain in this space that we're in now. We are life. If we were not life, then we could not birth life in terms of an infant. So we are life. Now, when it comes to this idea of living life, that is 100% materialistic, because our idea of living life is being able to have purchase power, to have power to travel where we want to live in wherever we desire to, or to drive the finest car that we desire to have. All of these things are what has been deemed to be living life. Living life spiritually is being aware of our obligation to bring such an awareness to the space of the macro until it is undeniable and it begins to diminish the thought or the belief that you have to have all of these things in order to live life. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yes, sir. And I'm not only that, when I was asking that question too, the Caucasian have and everything the Caucasian got and the way they got it, now us want to have what they have, get the piece of that pie too and have what they have. And I'm thinking it's supposed to be different. You understand what I'm saying?
I do, Charles.
I do have to keep on talking.
No, I got you. Please understand this. That we have allowed us to buy into a belief, and it's so deep in our unconscious space until it is extremely difficult to separate from, but we must do that. What we have bought into is not so much of the materialistic. We have bought into the enslavers being, the European being our God. We look to the Europeans for everything. We treat the Europeans as it is our God because we have made every effort to emulate the Europeans. We made every effort to become the slave master. We have embraced the religion that it used to enslave us. We have embraced the greed that has that came as that resulted rather in our enslavement. We have sought to embrace the material attitude that believe that Bezos is a powerful man because of the amount of money he has. He is actually powerless. We have bought into all of these things, and the way we have gotten into this arena of materialism is by virtue of bowing to internally and submitting to internally and being indoctrinated of who our God is, to the extent that we don't even see the difference between the God of the scriptures and the God that we have been given. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And I would like, thank you. I would like for anyone to elaborate on that, if you will.
You broke up a little bit.
I would like for anyone to elaborate on that, if you will.
Well, it's Rod. I think that's part of what we're doing each week is this new discovery of that started off us looking at ourselves. As you said, each and every one of us came from different places, and we had a inner yearning to hear and see what was being taught at different places, didn't agree with what we felt internally. And that was your first prodding that there's something more here that needs to be understood. There's something more here that that I still feel internally that I'm in the dark on, and it sent us all on a journey. And so it goes back to again comes back to the eighth sense, because it's an intuitive kind of thing that each and every one of us kind of felt, not knowing an answer or what necessarily direction to go in, except that there's a journey that I must take. That was the only thing that was clear. And so you understand that yearning is part of us understanding, again, beginning to understand who we are and to see that link or that oneness and that uniqueness with the universe and Elohim. And it has led us to the understanding that truth and religion are two different things. And not only that, but it's one of the things that has shown me is the stronghold that religion has on people, and the energy of it is a lot stronger than even if you can see truth, to show yourself truth, to fully pull away from that, not knowing that religion has really it rooted itself in us in a way that even now there are things that we have to hear repeatedly to kind of uproot or to see change in. So that is part of the process now. So again, to tie that to how we started, that realization or that the start of that journey again started with the sensing that there's something else here that I don't see yet. So I hope that makes sense.
Well, Ron, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say from the beginning we talked about how we get influenced by external factors, and just to expand on that a little bit is, we always talk about people are so influenced by their environment, and so when you're in an environmental, you're in a setting where the environment is influencing everything you do. Whether it be religion, your community. We say, well, I'm from Charleston. I'm from Charleston, but that's not who I am. And then what happens, now we're finding out that we should be influencing the environment, but all along we've been influenced by whatever environment we've been in, as far as upbringing, the environment in the church, the environment in your school. And once you find out the true identity of who we are, the awareness of who we are, then we begin to influence the environment around us by going back to what you said about the womb and creating. And so a lot of the things we're trying to overcome was basically because we were brought up in that environment, and we've got to flip it to where we're influencing our environment now and not and breaking ourselves free from all the influences that the environment had on us that we were in. So I was just trying to simplify it in that regard.
I see that clearly, and that's imperative that we do that. When Rhonda mentioned the yearning that we felt because we knew that it was more, that was an awakening. That was Jesus saying, "You must return to the beginning." That was an awakening to our memory, to our search for where we came from in order to spark this desire to see clearly our origin. But not only that, it also was a message to us. When we talk about, we tell people you don't have any sense. Well, we should complete the sentence. That yearning is telling us you don't have any sense as to who you are. You don't have any sense as to who you are, which means that you are limited to the physical senses and you have no clue of the power of the spiritual sense, especially when it is one with when it's one with the physicality of the body. It becomes the most powerful thing on earth. And when we realize that we are the most powerful thing on earth, then we are more easily able to be an influencers of our environment rather than having our environment influence us. So to Ron and S, those things that you brought up, I see them, and I'm hoping, Ron, that it's bringing some sense of clarity to the things that you are longing to see.
It is. Yeah, I'm again recognizing there's something there that I can't quite see yet. As far as I don't even know how to put it into words. I see it. I see being Elohim and the power behind it, and I see the desire for change. And we look at, here's what I'm saying. We look at things sometimes and we say, oh my God, it's already April. Oh my God, 2021 got out of here so fast. So what is it that's speeding up time? What is it that's making this thing, this physical world change? We see it, but in some aspects, things are changing rapidly. In some aspects, they are not. So what influences do we have on that? And I think it is the recognition of who we are that influences that. And it is our lack of accepting it in every degree or understanding it in every degree that makes some things seem like they're happening more rapid than the others. Does that make sense? Or do you agree with that?
I do. I think it's more of embracing it to see who we are. But I think the greater influence on what's happening comes when we influence time as well as our environmental circumstances. What am I saying? We can influence time, and that's obvious because it's sped up. However, because we continuously send mixed signals to the universe, we see things change, then we see things are not changing. It's like an ebb and a flow. If we are consistently embracing who we are, then we'll see consistent change. If we consistently embrace the truth, even if we don't understand it, it resonates, I don't understand it, that's fine. I embrace it anyway. When we are teaching, there are things I don't readily see, but I embrace them. And that is one of the reasons I am able to address or respond almost immediately, because I embrace the reality that everyone who raises a question, everyone who makes a statement, everyone who teaches are genuine in their desire for truth, are genuine in their desire to function the way they were created. So now we must embrace that we are functioning the way we were created to function. And that puts us in the now of everything. We are functioning as we were created to function. That's it. It is no more desire. We are not desiring change anymore, because as long as there is a desire, that means it's not happening. However, when we embrace the now of we are functioning as we were created to function, then that brings the change to the now, if that makes any sense to you guys. Especially to the statements that you made, Ron.
Well, let me ask this question then. and the ebb and flow that you spoke of. I see that a tad bit differently, and I'll tell you what I think, and see what you think of this. I think embracing Elohim, we have come to a place that we're at a place where we are experiencing more than we can explain. I can't explain this like a math equation, what beginning looks like. I can't do that. I'm trying to my best to step into this and see it and explain it from my experiences, or see it that way. So in being Elohim, the things that are put in motion are unexplainable and may not even be something we're aware of. So could the ebb and flow be that I started something by looking at loving kindness, and it is operating, or it is going in a way that I don't recognize? It doesn't mean that it's not happening. So I'm praying against myself, or standing against the thing that I put in motion, because I didn't know it would look this way. The pandemic, the all the things that we see, on the hindsight, you see, okay, these are part of those influences, but originally that you could not see that they were, and maybe we're still at that point. Does that make sense at all?
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm saying. We need to leave that place of desire and enter the place of acceptance, of embracing. We need to cease the ebb and flow and just go with the flow. And the way we do that is by embracing everything that resonates. Because understand, I do know that we will not be able to verbally articulate everything that we are experiencing internally. Neither will we be able to verbally articulate those experiences those thoughts that we are processing in our minds. Neither are we going to be able to necessarily articulate what we hear others say. No different than when someone asks you, what did you talk about on Sunday, or what did you talk about on Saturday or Monday? You say, you have to be there to know. It's difficult for me to tell you. Why? Because these are experiences, even though they're verbalized, these are experiences that we're talking about. When we talk about who we are, that's an experience. When we talk about senses, that's an experience. So we are experiencing it. And the more we are apt to go with the flow, meaning that to embrace the essence of everything that resonates, even though we can't explain it, even though we don't understand it. It is at that point that we become functional in the flow and not dysfunctional in the ebb and then the flow later. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does. And perhaps can you tell?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, when you say we're functional on the flow, it is another thing that I was is trying to be more clear on. And I thought about it. I said something a couple of weeks ago about we tried hard to make right decisions instead of the righteous decision. And the righteous decision, is with us being righteousness. And I think that's the flow that you're talking about. It's like when we make choices and decisions based on being in that flow, even though we don't see it at that point, at that time, that's what, the righteous, righteousness was always something we looked at kind of being an unattainable thing, or something that was so far from our reach. But the reality is once we lock into that flow, and we're truly understanding who we are, then that's where the righteousness flows, versus just trying to struggle to make a right decision that may not be the right decision. We base it on so many other things, but the righteousness just flows.
Yes, we base our decision making on what we've been taught academically, or what we have been exposed to in our communities, in our environment, as opposed to basing them on who we know we are. The idea of God, I lost the train of thought. Let's tell me, how did you start again? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your initial.
Yeah, I was just saying that, when we operate daily in the function of who we are, and we let our decisions flow based on that, that's true righteousness. And in the past, we've just tried to struggle to make a right decision based on what we think was right and look right, but the flow is the righteousness.
Yeah, I got it back now. Righteousness. We are righteous towards everyone except ourselves. When people make a decision and they regret that decision, the righteousness that we are tells them it's okay. This is a learning experience. This is not anything to destroy you. It's an opportunity for you to become stronger. However, when we make a wrong decision, or when we are faced with an obstacle, we beat ourselves up. Or we say, I hope that doesn't happen to me. We are being unjust to ourselves. We are being unrighteous to ourselves. And being unrighteous to ourselves makes it a greater struggle to remain in the flow. Because every time that we are unrighteous to ourselves, we are in essence saying that we are not worthy to be deemed righteous because of the statements we made of the thing that we did. Some of the things that we do that we label as being unrighteous are the most righteous things we've ever done, but they appear not to be because we are judging them. We are seeing them through our eyes, and we are judging them on the basis of the philosophy of education and training and religion that we have been exposed to. Does that make sense?
This is Barbara. S talked about external influences and things like that. And what we tend to do is we see religion, that external force, as who we are. The issue is we are righteousness. We are righteousness. That's the now of the eighth sense. We are peace. We are love. And so when we decide something, and then we later go back and say, well, what if? That's what you were talking about when you were saying that we were sending double messages to the universe. In other words, we are the universe. We are righteousness, and we made a decision based on that flow, that function of being who we are. And then we later go and question it. Well, the issue is everything will be what it's supposed to be when it comes from the flow of intent and desire of just being who we are. Even though it looks like the outcome was something that's made us question, well, did I make the right? Yeah, we make the right decision, and we just need to embrace that and trust that regardless of what the eyes see. When we do it with the right intent, the right motive, and from the essence of who we are, that's what makes it right, because we are right, if that resonates.
Yes, it does.
I have a question.
It does. Mm-hmm.
So what do you do when, okay, I had a desire to change the agency where I work. And so during that week, they fired a lot of people. And I didn't forget who I was, but I felt bad because of what was going on around me. It was bothering me so bad till I had to call pastor about it. And you know who you are when you're in this time, but I needed relief from what I was feeling, even though I desired for this to happen. So how do you keep calm in the midst of something like that?
This is it. This is exactly what we're talking about, Eddie. This is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about, you say, I know who I am, but how do you keep calm in the midst of this? By reminding yourself of who you are, the memory of the now. The memory tells you who you are. By when you are reminding yourself of who you are, what you're actually doing is cleansing your mind from creating fears and that are unwarranted, and it is strengthening the impact of your soul on your mind. So you do this by cultivating the concept of who you are, and that cultivation comes by reminding yourself of that. However, if you remind yourself of that and you return to keep returning to that place of your feeling rather than walk away from it, then that's what the issue is. And I'm going to give you a clear example. After we spoke about the things that were taking place at your agency, right? Did you not feel better?
I did.
Were you not more confident of who you are?
Yes.
And all I said to you was what?
Remember who you are.
That's it. That's all I said. Remember who you are. And you changed everything, right?
Yes, it did.
So that's what you have to do. You have to remember who you are. The Creator has given me permission to be covered. I respect that. I love that. However, at some point, the covering gets crucified. Not in a bad way. At some point, the covering steps back, and those who are covered become coverings. And in order for you to become a covering, you have to hold on not only to what you believe, but you have to remind others of who they are as well. And that is the reason why we need each other so desperately. We need, when you are realizing it's difficult for you to work through something, we need each other. However, it should get to a place at some point where you are able to work through most of what you deal with. Not necessarily everything, but most of what you deal with. Does
Pastor,
that make sense? Yes.
you were muffled when you were speaking just now.
I'm sorry.
Could you
We
kind of,
must repeat it.
yes, thank you.
Okay. We must remember. Well, let me start at this point. I am covering, and I appreciate that. I love that, and I respect it highly. However, there comes a day when you become a covering as well. And at that point of being covering, you realize that you've always been a covering. That's why people come to you, and you remind them of who they are, not necessarily saying, know who you are, but remember that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. That religious people get that. This is what covering does. However, you are not able all the time to handle what you're facing alone. But the overwhelming majority of what you deal with, you are able to face it. And the easiest way to deal with it is for you to help someone else deal with their circumstance. Yet, we need each other. I need you. You need each other. I need all of you. And let me show you something. I derive the strength to get through what I'm dealing with in terms of Stephen's fitness, from reminding myself who I am, but not only that, but from you reminding me of who I am. And that happens every time we come together on the phone. That happens when we have conversations, no matter how unimportant they may seem. That happens when you call and ask me something. That happens when you simply call and say, I'm with you. All of these things are a reminder of who we are. We never get to the place where we don't need each other because we are each other. So you're feeling what you did at that place at that time. It does not mean that you had lost sight of who you are, but you were not able to deal with that circumstance simply by reminding yourself. You had to hear it so it will resonate deeply. And resonation, when something, the resonance of something, or when something resonates deeply with you, it usually comes from the voice or the thought from someone else. Does that make sense? Ellen?
Yes, sir, it does.
So don't feel bad when you call, because that reminder. And I've said to you before without even knowing what I was talking about. I said to you, don't worry about it. When you're dealing with blah blah blah, you will hear my voice. You remember, some of you probably remember me telling you that.
Yes.
Hearing the voice is helping it to resonate again and again and again and again. So the resonance of it is what keeps us stable. And the resonance of what Bob was talking about when we were talking about righteousness, what S.C. was talking about when we were talking about righteousness, what Ron was talking about, all of these things are experiences that we hear when we are fighting to hold on to who we are, till we get to a place where we no longer have to fight to hold on to who we are. And I would tell you, I don't have to fight to hold on to who I am, regardless of what my eyes are seeing and what we are experiencing in the physical aspect of this world. I don't have to fight to do that. I fight to understand why, and I may never understand the why, but I still maintain who I am. And simply because I shed a tear or I'm upset about something, it doesn't mean I've lost sight of who I am. As a matter of fact, when I shed a tear about what is happening, when I feel the pain of what is happening, that experience is telling me in no uncertain terms that I am functioning with every sense that I was created with. That's the experience. And regardless of how painful it is, I still know who I am. I still know that I was brought into this earth to do what I am doing. And that when I realize and when I embrace that, and because I am saying that, here's the I now. I am saying the same thing about you, because you are the I, and so am I, the I. Not only the internal EYE, but also the I am of the I. Does that make sense to you guys? Comments, questions?
Yes, yes, yes.
Very much so.
So, and I know you guys, you expected me, Paul, no matter what time of the night it is. All you're saying to me is that I will help you bear the pain. I will be there to bring healing to your pain. And that's what we're saying to each other when we say we're there for you. Any questions?
I have one more, Rip. And I ain't gonna say no more.
No,
When Jesus when Jesus went to the shore to get the disciples that he was wanting. Now, I know with more people there, you know, to come to, why just them? Not only that, doing this, when Jesus told, I want to know why Jesus told them to follow him. And that following him, it seemed like it's what we're going through now. That's it.
Okay, Charles. Good questions. All questions are great. However, I like these two in a different way. Number one, let me take the last question first. When Jesus said, follow me, Jesus was saying, follow me in terms of the teachings that he was going to do, accompany me on this journey is what he was saying. I remember distinctively saying to Great New Faith and that what I have taught you has not been right. I taught you what I have been told. What I teach you now will come from the scriptures. And all I ask you to do is follow me as I follow God. I did not realize what I was saying at that point. But what I was saying is accompany me on this journey. And look what the journey has brought us. The other thing, how did he choose the disciples? How were the teachers, how were the facilitators chosen? I don't know how, in terms of articulating what I experienced. There was a knowing that did it. I remember distinctly saying to Barbara at Foundation, I was going to be away, and I asked her to teach that next week for me. And she looked at me and smiled. And I said, you know that lesson you've been preparing, I want you to teach it. How do you know I've been preparing the lesson, Pastor? That's where it started. When with Nick, it was simply, Nick, I need you to take my place. I won't be here. These kinds of things with Kathy, with ST, there was a feeling that I had, and it was different with each one of you. And the other thing that I saw, or see rather, is that the Creator prepared us for the transitioning of Carla. I said to LaVon, "You are a teacher," and she denied it, ran from it, refused it. And we used to laugh about that. However, when Carla transitioned, no one said to her, "It's time for you to step in." She just did it. She stepped into that space. And the same thing happened when there were those who left, who walked away. There were others who stepped into that space. That's how Sheldon became a facilitator. He stepped into a vacant space, and I was not aware of him stepping into a space at that time. However, looking at it retrospectively, I see that. The memory tells me that. So if you desire a verbal explanation of the hows and the explanation of the innuendos that led to this, I cannot provide that. I can only provide examples to you and experiences. For example, in the space of Kathy and Linda, they have been teaching from Mount Tabor, from my first ministry. They've always been in that space, and even in the association in that space. And there are, of course, others who've been in that space at the same, for that length of time as well. So again, these are examples that I can give you, but they're not how-tos that I can give you in this regard, because it came from the depth of my soul. I felt it. I experienced it. I knew that they were the one. And that's how I do believe that Jesus knew. Questions, comments, does that help you, Charles?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Thelma, for telling him to take it off of mute. Anybody else? Or just to resonate with you guys in regards to the experiences that brought us together. Because even with those experiences, the follow me was still there. And it was accompanying me on the journey. And look where the journey has brought us. It's brought us to a place where we have gone beyond where Jesus was when he made the choice of the disciples. What am I saying to this? When Jesus made those choices, they were still splintered as a group. They were still individualistic as a group. They had to go through some trials, even the threat of their lives, before they were able to bond as one unit. We have not had to go through that to bond as one unit. We have been brought together by divine powers that are inexplicable, and we have not at any point been similar. We have continuously grown into becoming one entity. Janice was recording, and she was sitting at the table, and she made a statement in regards to adultery, and that she was brought into the fold not by me as much as by the Creator bringing her into the fold. All of these things comes back to my memory. So anyway, when I talk about the teachings, we have learned that we don't teach from books. We reveal from the Spirit, from our souls. We uncover from our souls. We bring awareness from our souls. We're not teaching you so you can learn. We're teaching you so you can experience. I'm done.
So I
And
have
I
a quick
certainly hope
question.
that.
Good morning. This is Audrey. So when the disciples were there in the upper room waiting, and I know I'm getting it all mixed up, but anyway, when Jesus appeared to them, that was his way of reminding them of who they were. But
Yes.
my question is, what was it? I mean, was it shortly after that they were able to, I mean, take their place in terms of what he needed them to do, and that they needed to take on that certain mantle? So it was shortly after that, right? After he appeared to them, because he reminded them of who they were.
And they were still fighting until they realized that the Romans, they thought rather that the Romans were seeking to crucify them as well. And that's when they came out of the upper room and went into Samaria, Jerusalem and Samaria and the othermost parts of the world. That's when they spread it. They began to travel to spread what they had been taught. Prior to that, they were a group of separate individuals in a place, cowering, being afraid of what may happen to them.
Right. So what was the moment that made them realize who they were?
When it says that when the Holy Spirit appeared, right? When they became aware, without a doubt, of who they were based upon the teachings of Jesus, when they became aware that they were Elohim in the flesh, it is what brought the awareness to them was the fear of losing their lives. That the awareness that came to them in an instant. And when I say an instant, they became aware that they were created in the image of Elohim, and they are Elohim, and they are the things that Jesus taught, and they are obligated to carry these things to other people. That awareness came in an instant, and they heard, and people, when they began to speak, people heard in their own language. The explanations that we give right now, if we were to go talk to some religious people about the a memory and the aspects of Abraham and the others leaving these things, these signs to bring about memories and what beginning looks like, we would be speaking another language to them. They would understand what we're talking about. So when you're talking about understanding your language, it's talking about more about understanding the way that you that you embrace things, that understanding based upon your hearing, based upon what is it, your environmental exposure. So all of this happened in an instant. It was not like days, but it took days for them to get to that place. Does that make sense, Audrey? Hello?
Sorry, yes.
Audrey? Okay.
So the Holy Spirit serves that same purpose for us in terms of reminding us, and is the eighth sense sort of akin to the Holy Spirit?
The eighth sense is functioning as in the place of who we were created to function, like we were created to function. Where we are further along the journey than they were, in that we see that we are able to teach globally without having to travel globally. We are able to influence the global environment without having to be physically present there. They saw that they were influenced by virtue of their physical presence and the teachers that they rendered. We are beyond that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Any questions about that? What we are actually doing, the vision that Jesus left, we are writing that vision. We're writing that vision on tablets. On the tablets that we're writing the vision on is the hearts of men. That's where we're writing the vision, on the hearts of men. And that vision is being read, actually. They are beginning to see what we are writing. They are beginning to read what has been written. And we are making the vision plain. We are dealing with the vision in such a manner that regardless of the level of your understanding, regardless of the environment that you came out of, you are able to see the vision with a clarity. And we have become the oracle for the earth, and we have become the oracles whose function is in concert with the universe itself. Questions, comments? And I hope that was not confusing. If it was, please ask me a question or tell me you did not quite get it or you didn't understand it, okay? Okay, Esther, you have anything else you want to say, add, or comment on? Because we can really bring it to an end at this point so we come back together again. ST, are you still there? He was traveling, so he may have lost it. So, but anyway, let me leave you by saying that I'm very grateful for your presence, not only in my life, but in the lives of each other. I'm very grateful that you have always stood firmly when it comes to searching for truth, and stood firmly when it came to when I got to a place where I needed to be undergirded and strengthened. I'm very much appreciative of that. And I do not see us as individual entities. I see us as one soul, but different aspects of the same soul. And that is the reason it is so easy for us to pick up and teach, regardless of what the other person was teaching, and regardless of whether or not we were privy to it. Well, we didn't have to hear it, but we still can pick up and do that because we are different aspects of the same soul. So trust what you believe, know who you are, and we will reinforce that tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And there are some of you I'll see you again in California meeting. So have a great day. And thank you for your presence.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, fam.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.